This is the Peaceful Revolutionary Sylvain Rochon speaking. I'm really happy to be here today for another week of a nice vlog. Today the topic is Making America Great Again, and I used that title on purpose because this is Donald Trump's tagline. And though I have to admit, some of the stuff he said that he wanted to do, especially taking the troops out from South Korea and Japan and other locations, bringing them home because it's costing the U.S. money with very little in return, direct returns. I agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with the foundations why he wants it necessarily, because I don't know what's going on in this brain of his. But I agree with the bottom line is this economically, it makes sense to bring the money back inside the United States kind of language, because the U.S. is spending like an empire essentially, and it is an empire that is collapsing as well because it's overstretched, and people are just fed up with all the stuff. And so I just wanted to use that title because in my mind, to make America great is not about economy necessarily. Economy is part of it, but really it's about the people. Like there is a great tiny country called Bhutan. It's in Southeast Asia. I look it up. It's 700,000 people. It's a kingdom, so there's a king there still. Okay, so no democracy, right? But they have a thing there that is called the Happiness Index. That's set in place by the king because the kings there believed, and the current king same, that the measure of the leadership of the king is based on the happiness of the people. If the people are happy, genuinely happy, then he's doing a good job. What a novel idea is that, right? But it makes a lot of sense. It made so much sense that in 2011, the United Nations made a resolution to start measuring countries of the United Nations according to the Happiness Index, right? And in that way, because they feel, well, that's a great idea, and to measure how the policies, the political policies, actually impact the people. Because the politicians, guess what? They're supposed to work for the people to make their lives easier and happier, right? Fundamentally, everybody wants to be happy, and the happier we are, the less trouble we're in, and the more we can provide for ourselves, for each other, and the country is really in a good state. So, I mean, that's where everything should be, shouldn't it? I mean, that's where we should focus, right? So I just lost my train of thought there. So there's a measurements that's been done every year since 2011, including one in 2015, and it really doesn't surprise me that a lot of the Scandinavian countries are in the top 10. Sweden, Iceland, Denmark, Norway, Finland, the Netherlands. These are all up there because they've always had that reputation of great living over there. Canada is number 5, I'm happy to say. Now, where does the U.S. sit in that ranking? Well, the U.S. sits number 15, so not at the bottom. I mean, U.S. citizens think that they're doing great, but the happiness index doesn't really only measure what people think. It does do that using the Gallup World poll, as using some specific questions that are yes or no by the population themselves. So they're using some of those, right? But they're also using things like GDP and other measurements that are just statistical as part of the measurement. And I'm going to go through them just one by one real quick. And here's my point, I guess, like for you guys that are American in there. The U.S. rates lower than Costa Rica or Mexico. Okay, So that should ring a bell. I mean, the U.S. has the capacity to be super high. Like it could be number one, really. I mean, honestly, right? It could be number one because it's strong people, strong economy. But it's just there's a lot of misuse based on the statistics we see here. And I'm going to give you the link of the World Happiness Report itself down below, as well as a couple of other articles about it that kind of define certain things if you don't want to read the whole report, which is significant. But I mean, the U.S. Has some strengths, which are, as far as the happiness index is concerned, and some weaknesses. So let's go through the different elements. So the happiness index measures the GDP per capita, so the gross domestic product per capita, which essentially it's a measure of the purchasing power. So if people have more purchasing power, they tend to have more freedom of getting what they need for their family, for themselves. So yeah, they feel more freedom, they're happier. So that's one of the measurements. Second measurement is social support. And this is essentially a Gallup poll, if whether or not about the systems themselves, whether or not the people feel that the systems are in place for them if they need it. And that's another one. The life expectancy is another one. If that's a measurement of the general health of the population, including the health system, what they eat. Like if you live longer inside your country, the life expectancy is longer, then it's a measure of happiness, because health is part of happiness, right? Freedom to make life choices. That's another poll. If people feel they're free, I'm using those words, then they say yes. If they don't, they say no. It's really binary when they do the polling. Generosity. If you have sufficient money or resources and freedom that you are able and willing to give to others, organizations, neighbors, whoever it is, again, this is another poll, then you say, yes, yeah, I feel like I do give, I do things, I do volunteer, blah, blah. That's another measure of happiness. If you're affluent and you give, well, you must be happier, right? Another one is the perceptions of corruption, especially in the political. Again, this is another poll, and you say yes or no if you feel like this the government is highly corrupted or not. Then you answer that by a binary question, and that's another measurement. A positive effect. That's it. Okay. So those are the criteria. Now, as far as the U.S. is concerned, the U.S. compared to the previous, like it's number 15. So compared to the top 14, in general, because there's really highs and lows in the ratings for all these for these 6 general criteria. The U.S. rates fairly high, above average for the GDP, so purchasing power. Not surprising there. It rates fairly high, like a little bit higher than average or close to the average as far as social support. So the people believe there's sufficient social support if they need it. They call upon it. So we're talking about, probably healthcare. We're talking about employment insurance, welfare, do different things. I know they're termed differently in the U.S., but those are the Canadian terms. But I think you know what you mean, like social support for pretty much anything. But it rates lower on that than the average top 15 in life expectancy. Again, this is not so surprising for me, because Americans has terrible eating habits. For one, and healthcare is definitely expensive if you don't have the proper insurance. And there's this whole discussion with Obamacare and all this stuff that is trying to rectify that, and maybe it has a bit, but people in the States have health problems that other countries don't have generally, just because of how they live, how they eat, which is a social problem. It's not really related to the political aspects of things. What's really surprising, maybe not so much, is that they rate lower than average as far as whether or not they feel that they have the freedom to make their own life decisions, and whether or not the government is corrupt. Costa Rica, of course, as far as corruption is maybe higher, like in the rating, it's number 12, I think, for happiness, but the corruption part is really low. Like people think that the government is way more corrupt, but for the U.S., this U.S. population, its own population, think that their government is more corrupt compared to the Scandinavians and Canadians and these other countries that are higher on the happiness index. But the most interesting part is the freedom to make life decisions, and I've talked about this before, where the government and the medias are hand in hand. In some way, also religion, the Catholic faith, but not as much as they used to be, are kind of in cahoots in some way to control public opinion. And in the name of freedom, reduces the freedom of the population because of the threat of terrorism, because of these threats that are totally outside the U.S. and honestly created by the American economical and military complex outside. And for military and economical reasons, the American government and businesses, honestly, they attack other countries to take control of oil and other economical interests, and creates these threats to the American people back, including Al Qaeda and terrorism and these other things. I mean, these are creations of the military and political complex that do control the media, and what the media does, it creates a message to the people to convince them that this is necessary, and these reductions of freedoms are necessary to make sure that you remain free, which is super stupid. So the people, they start noticing these things, and when they rate in the World Gallup poll how freedom their choices are, they rate lower than other countries that don't do these bullshit things. Okay, so it makes a little bit of a sense. And the corruption is, of course, people also are aware of the money involved in politics and the movements of the foreign policies and even internal policies that are directed by economical interests that are inside and outside of the country, and not in the interest of the happiness of the people or the will of the people. So there's this whole situation in the U.S. So how do you make America great again? My version, Donald Trump has his version. My version, well, as a people, we have power. We have the ultimate power, actually. We just have to be strong enough to act on this power. It's the power of our voices, not the power of our guns or fists or anything like that. The power of our pen, essentially. We have to speak out against the media that is controlled by the politics. Excuse me. And we have to elect or change the system, or elect people that are less corrupt or non-corrupt, that wants to clean up. We have to get out of these countries where the only reason why the American military is for economical reasons. We have to apologize to a whole bunch of countries that we've aggressed over the years, and create a whole bunch of hate towards American people. That's how you protect your people, is by making sure the other countries just don't hate your guts, right? Get out of there. Stop forcing them to reducing their freedom, essentially, by being imperialist, and making them angry, and creating these fanatical groups that want to kick our ass by striking bombs to themselves. Stop doing false flag operations just to scare the shit out of the people, in order to encourage more funding into the military. These are things that the people themselves have to educate themselves, and they have to speak out about. They have to say, like, no, if there's another 9/11, there's another Brussels bombing, there's another something or other, aggression that is obviously fabricated by the American CIA or whoever's doing it, whatever organization is doing it. Like you just say, no, I won't react to that. I won't be scared about that because this is not what it seems to be. And you're killing your own people. Stop doing that, and you essentially just do a peaceful revolution, do a peaceful revolt, go to the street, do like another Vietnam protests, for example, to stop the war. Now, this is a war against your own government, in a sense, and its stupid policies of trying to convince the American people that they're doing things for them instead of the companies that are actually feeding off these foreign policies. Bring the soldiers back to their homes. Protect the American people inside the U.S. from threats that are real threats. Make the American military a police to help the American people, as well as perhaps participating in the world police to help other countries, when they ask for it. Not when the U.S. decides, well, okay, there's a threat here, and yeah, it may potentially, maybe, perhaps be a threat to the U.S. at some point in time in the future. So let's go there and attack, and the American people is gonna, be with this because hey, there's a terrorist in their group somewhere, and we're gonna, blow them up, and everything's gonna be okay. No one ever, somewhere, sometime, perhaps in the future, is gonna attack you. So let's stop doing that, right? So that's the whole thing. And if you, I also posted down a video that was from a conference by Michio Kaku. I just really love this guy. He has a lot of really good information about how the people's opinions in the past inside the U.S. has stopped plans to do other bomb drops to stop the war in the Korean War, for example, in the Vietnamese War. He mentioned those events with some detail, and you can go check that out yourselves. But because in the Second World War was stopped using bombing attacks, they didn't want to just do it according to their plan to stop these other wars, because they weren't sure how the American population would react. Because these are politicians that need to be elected, and honestly, they don't want to revolt on their hands. So they tested the population by doing some speeches to see how the people would be willing to the Americans use atomic bombs to stop conflicts again, and the people reacted very strongly to the insinuation of doing that, and so they didn't enact the plans. The wars were ended in different ways, but no nuclear weapons were used, even though it was definitely were plans in place to actually do that. So it's simply a case of the American population, or the population of any country, making a choice and reacting appropriately and strongly to what they want their government and military to do. Not whether or not what they decide to do, and trying to convince us, oh, this is a good thing, and here's some bullshit, and we're going to this is going to be great because it's going to be good for you, and here's why, and bullshit. Don't fall into that trap. And on occasion, I've discussed about false flags, like Brussels may be a false flag, 9/11 likely was a false flag. It's just to rile people up into following whatever the government wants to do in foreign lands. So the government is killing its own people to enact policies and killing people elsewhere with the support of the people. Because if they didn't do that, if 9/11 never happened, the war on terror would have never happened. So this is 15 years of war on terror where we're not anywhere advanced, actually. We've created more terrorists than before, but it allowed the government to do that with the population's support. So to make America great, we have to change these things We have to, we have to gain our freedom as a population back. All these checks and these balances that are pushed on the American people by the media, by the government. Hey, we're protecting you, so here's more restrictions to your freedom, so you feel more secure. These barriers have to be removed. The population has to do something. These barriers have to be removed. We have to remove the corruption, this whole complex that creates this situation. The will of the people has to prevail. The people do not want war. The people do not want more 9/11s, more problems here on the soil. The people just want to be happy. Global happiness index. You just want to be happy. And what that means is just, hey, we just want to have good social programs. We want to have sufficient money so we can provide for ourselves. We want to live a good long life, a healthy life, so a good health system, good education system, and we want to educate ourselves at eating better, and we want to be able to make our own life choices. We want to have that freedom to make choices, travel, religion, whatever you want. We want to be able to give to other people. We want to have that extra bonus so that we feel comfortable enough to give. And we don't want a corrupt political system. We want politicians that will enact the will of the people from the bottom up, not top down, from the bottom up. The people say something, hey, we want to have better health care. And the politicians listen. They want to have better health care. Okay, let's do something about that. That's how it should work. Right now, it doesn't always work that way. It's more like you have money-hungry companies and individuals that say, okay, like we need more money. How do we do that? Well, how about we go get some oil in the Middle East? This country, we could probably justify it because there's a nasty dictator there that's doing weird things. We could probably convince the people that, this is a threat, and we're doing the world a favor by removing this dictator. So let's do that. So we'll be the benevolent invaders to remove that dictator, and we're going to set democracy. That's always a positive thing. Like, we're going to set democracy there because democracy is freedom. It's good. So the people are going to be for that. So what else could we do there? We can remove the terrorists from the country too, because everybody's afraid of terrorists since 9/11, right? So we're going to do all that. We're going to spend the people's money to do that, and that's what we're going to say, and that's what we're going to push out to the media, because we own the media. So let's do that, and then people are going to be with us. They're going to support it. They're going to be taxes, and we're going to be doing this. The military and the soldiers will be all in because they believe they're protecting their country and they're doing something good for the rest of the world. So that's the message we're going to push. And once we're there and we won all this stuff, because it's all funded by the people, by taxes, these rich individuals will just, they're going to provide support by infrastructure for oil and all these things, right? And they're going to reap a bunch of money. So that sounds like a great plan, but that's a top down. So and then it goes to the politicians eventually and the media. Oh, this is what's going on there. Oh, we have to do something. And then the people hear this message and they say, well, okay, if that's the case, let's do it, because that sounds terrible over there. And we want to be the good guys. So let's pay money to the government and let's do it. Crazy top down approach. The government is at the service of the people, not the other way around. They're not supposed to fill their own pockets, because you can believe it. A lot of politicians are pocketing a lot of that private sector money. And the media is owned by the private sector. So the more scared you are, the more revolted you are about some situation or other, the more media is consumed by the population. They make more money that way as well. So the more sensationalism there is, the more disasters there are, the more scared you are, the more money they make off of media as well. So let's revolt. Let's revolt by being peaceful. Here's some ways you can do it. Don't watch the media. Ignore the news. Too much bullshit. Too many lies. Don't do it. Ignore it. Number one. Second part. Sorry, I'm being distracted. Second part to do that. So you don't fall prey to the fear. Do your own research. Look at things from the other perspectives. Dig in. Like, there's a target country somewhere. Let's say North Korea. There's China. Talk to people from there if you can. Do research. People that have been there. There's some journalists, independent people, blogs, individuals that have experienced certain things. They've reported certain things. Make your own damn mind about things, and then you decide, is it worth us spending a lot of money to go there to do certain things? Like, don't we have, shouldn't we spend money here to do some interesting things for us that would be more advantageous? And push that out to your governor, to your deputy, or whoever it is, right? And refuse any kind of policy or movement by the government that doesn't work out for your own interest or the direct interest of your country. Just say no, I'm not going to do that. No, and just do something. Write letters, emails, tweets, Facebook. Do blogs about it. Anything you can to show the government that you're against it. Share it. Do everything you can. If people do that, if enough people do that, the politicians cannot do it. And the media, because they're selling, they need to sell, they can't publish some of the stories that are bullshitty. Because too much of the public opinion would be against it. They want to be with the population, with the opinion of the population, because that's how they sell. People want to hear news that they agree on, or that are shocking, but in a positive way that's going to drive them in a certain way. So if it comes from the bottom, if we do our own research and we share and we do our own news as a population, the media has to follow, and the politicians have to follow. They can't do something that is against the majority of the opinion of the people. So it can completely change upside down this whole structure, and you can make the America great because the American people are great, and they're able to do it. They have the money to do it. We have the social media. We have the internet. We have all these communications. We're able to do it. We can go from the ground up. We can rebuild the media, and we can rebuild a positive, non-corrupt government by forcing these entities to adopt our ideologies and not the other way around. So it's all in our hands, right? Let's do it. So I'm going to say good day to you guys on this. I hope we get somewhere with all this this chatter. All the links are posted down below for references about the happiness index and all this stuff. Hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you again next week. Ciao for now.